So welcome back, guys. This is going to be just a simple digital painting. It's going to be a speed paint, and I'm sorry I wasn't planning on recording it, but once I had reached this point, I figured that maybe I should just record it for the sake. Yeah, but I'm not going to be making a full. I don't know which kind of procedure I should use on posting my videos here, because I don't want to post. For example, this whole painting process is 6 hours, and I don't want to just put 6 hours onto YouTube. So I'll be putting everything on my Patreon page. I'll be putting a lengthier video version of this on my Patreon page if you want to check that out. But for now, I'm just going to be explaining my quick thought process of working with this. So the reason here you're seeing that here I'm basically working with abstract shapes and lines when I'm starting out on painting this kind of portrait. It's because here I'm considering factors such as gesture and like expressions. I'm not just going on the fundamentals of just painting a face, but I'm painting like everything, because it's like almost half full body. So my first idea here is to make sure that I get the proportions right. So here I'm not trying to get the likeness in the first try, but I'm just trying to set in the proportions from the head down to the legs. All right, so again, you can see that once we get to the leg side, it's not the same kind of gesture, because I just changed it to just suit exactly what I was envisioning in my head. Again, some of it requires let you do some kind of, you can look for reference and then stage your model in the way you want. But here, when I was painting Meg, I have a picture that I can work off of, and I know the gesture that I'm going for. So the idea is to put down the lines, the basic lines that I need to work with. And so once I'm fairly fine with like the basic proportions, then I can go in and start refining like the face, and trying to come up with some working things, some working layers. I can try to chase the likeness in this portrait. So again, as you may have already noticed, that this is a totally uncut raw video voiceover. So yeah, because I don't know exactly, I'm still trying to figure out how I can work with this. I'm still trying to figure out a perfect way of presenting this. But anyway, so as you can see here now, once I get my proportions right and I'm fairly comfortable with them, then I can go in and then start looking for likeness, because it's important. If I'm to start with a face, I can end up wasting just 1 full hour on a face. But getting to this point at this level, it took me maybe 40 minutes, right? Because I had the proportions down and it was much easier. So here I was just experimenting with some variety to see, because I was trying to stage my perspective. Again, perspective is another thing that you have to keep in mind, most especially if you're going to add things like a background, which is not just a plain background. As you can see in this photo, there are some sort of light dynamics in the background. But so again, perspective plays a very important role in that, as you'll see, as I'll be explaining when that point comes. But here again, it's just going with the basic likeness, and when I'm working at this stage, I'm constantly zooming in to make sure that I'm zooming out to make sure that everything matches cohesively. So here is the lighting part, and I want the left side to be where the light's coming from, and the right side to be losing light at a very, very fast pace. So that's why you can see that working with different shades of this orangish hue here, because I brought in a reference on the side to work as my color reference. So I'm getting my proportions and her likeness from this photo on the left, but my lighting and everything is referenced from a different photo, again her photo, but on the right, because I wanted to kind of put in that hair, I just like the way that photo lighting was, so that's why. So here you can see that I'm experimenting with perspective. Again, you can use perspective brushes. If you're on my Patreon, I'll be giving you the brushes and probably the project files, but you can use perspective brushes, or you can just download perspective brushes online and try to get your perspective right, because if you don't, then you'll face problems. All right, so again here, when you're adding in colors, you want to add in colors relative to your light source, so your environment. So which means here, since I have a warm environment, my shadows are generally going to be warm shadows again, and generally the colors are going to be warmer. So even though on the left side you can see that her jacket is actually composed of cool colors, maybe like it's like a cool environment, but here when I'm blocking in, I'm not using that color because I'm trying to I'm trying to fit that attire into the environment that I'm working with, right? So here I was facing some perspective issues with her face, because it's very easy to flatten the face in this kind of lighting, where most artists tend to stay away from portraits or paintings which have very subtle light differences, value differences, like the way this portrait is. But for me, actually, most of these portraits have very good composition to them, and for me, I feel like I have to work with them and make them work in my own way, even though the value differences are very, very subtle. But if you don't get that right, so for example, on the left, on her cheek side, the side where you're seeing the side of her face, if you keep a consistent value across, then it will flatten the face. But by dropping the values on the side of the face, you can see that now it appears like the face is a kind of it gives shape to, it gives form to the face, and so that's why I decided to use that. But everything else pretty much stays the same. It's just, you just have to observe, like observe a few things, like where there are bumps, which means that there is light falling onto those areas. Like if, like on the cheek areas there, if you study your anatomy, you'll know that there is kind of more light falling onto those areas than the areas towards the mouth and stuff. So that's again something you keep in mind. And with the eyes, I just decided not to tamper with them. I'm just going to leave, I'm not going to add in the typical eye, the iris, because even here in the photo I can't really see it, and it will just make my portrait busy. So I decided to leave them out, because anyway, I'm trying to capture likeness, and I'm sure with the decisions that I'm making, it will be much easier, and it will keep the portrait less busy. So with that, you can see that by now I'm using hard brushes at this point. I'm not focusing on blending, as I'm not using the soft brush. I'm using some brushes of my own. They will be again on my Patreon, but I'll give them to you, or you can create your own brushes as well if you want to. But for me, I just decided to use those blocking in brushes, so because it helps to, if you paint with just a soft brush, your painting will appear blurry, and it will just be terrible in general. So that's why I decided to use kind of the simple hard brushes, like custom hard brushes. You block in the shapes, and then once you get the value differences, like where you want light to fall and then you can begin smudging, or you can use a soft brush. So for example, here when I'm smoothing out, I'll be using a soft brush, and you'll see that. All right, so it's a constant checking of your proportions and constantly checking to see that you're getting things right. Okay, so here you can see now I'm making different changes. Now again, I'm not exactly following the photo reference there, because again, I want to make it feel right. So for me, what I see in my head is what I'm trying to paint when it comes to the gesture, because generally humans, we generally have the same physique, so you can tell when something is off, or something it's not coherent with the general figure, or the general figure. So it's important that you make some decisions of your own if you're faced with such situations where you feel something is not right. All right, so here I'm going now for likeness. So I'm again painting, and when you're painting digitally, it's much easier because you can just use your lasso tool. Just press L on the keyboard and then just lasso out some places. You can use the liquify tool like I did there, and just push pixels around and figure out like how you want your portrait to appear, right, without redoing the work again. So that's why sometimes I like digital painting. Yeah, but generally this is how this is so much as I went into the face. So here you can see that I used now the soft brush, and I smoothed out the face, those values that I just created smooth transitions between the values, between the light values and the darker values, so that I give form to the face. If I had painted close to with the same value structure of my reference photo on the left, I would have had a flat image. So that's why I had to force some values here. Again, maybe I'll be explaining that on a video that will be on my Patreon. But so here with the clothing, it's like they're just different values of dark and light, dark versus light, but they all have the one similar thing, that they're all kind of warm tones, because again the environment that you're painting in is warm. That's why I deliberately refused to use the blue jean, even though it's probably a good thing, but it would have, if I had put it there, it would have attracted more attention to it, and I don't want too much attention to be drawn to the legs area. So because of course the focal point is the face, but if I put in a very contrasting color like blue here in a portrait that I meant for the most part to be a monochromatic painting, it would have just screamed a lot. That's why I removed the blue. All right, so there are just maybe principles of design, but everything is subjective. You always do what you want, it just doesn't matter. So this is as far as I went. So I'll be posting this on my Instagram, and the video will be on my Patreon. So I'll speak to you soon. Take care.